But why is it that you find debate only in Tibet? Where does that debate tradition come from? It's so unique to Tibetan Buddhism. You don't find it, for instance, in Chinese Buddhism. You don't find it in the Theravada tradition. Now there's more interest and people are possibly picking it up and maybe also utilizing it. But traditionally, this is unique to Tibetan Buddhism. As far as I know, in other Buddhist traditions, you don't find this tool of debating. So I guess the reason for that is, well, Shantarakshita, the great master, the Indian master Shantarakshita, who was invited to Tibet in the 8th century. I mean, there were different times when Buddhism came to Tibet, when Buddhist masters were invited to Tibet, but one very important time was the time of, well, Shantarakshita and Guru Rinpoche's arrival in Tibet. So those two masters. But of the two, it was Shantarakshita who was a member of what's called Nalanda University. So there are other Buddhist universities, were other universities in India, Buddhist universities, but the most famous is definitely Nalanda, or was definitely Nalanda. And so many of the great masters, Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Ayadeva, Buddhapalita, and so forth, came from one of these universities, and probably a majority of them came from Nalanda, which is why the tradition you find in Buddhism is also described as the Nalanda tradition. And in Nalanda, well, the monks debated with each other, not just the monks, but the members of Nalanda, those living at Nalanda, debated with each other. It started there. It started, well, I don't know whether at the time of the Buddha, but the Buddha definitely encouraged that kind of intellectual exchange. And then at some point, it became very much part of Buddhist education in India. And in these universities, it was so beautiful because there were not just Buddhists living there. There were practitioners, intellectuals, scholars from other traditions who would also come and debate with the monks there, mainly monks, but also, I guess, lay people. And there was this incredible exchange of learning from each other, learning in the way of like taking on possibly aspects, explanations from another tradition, but also strengthening one's own understanding of one's own tradition, having compared it to another way of thinking and so forth. And that way of, well, that kind of intellectual exchange, that kind of debating tradition was brought to Tibet through Shantarakshita. He passed it on. He ordained the first monks. The first monks were ordained, and slowly it's spread in Tibet. But it wasn't as widely practiced as we may think. I mean, nowadays, because, for instance, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who encouraged at least all the Gelug monasteries and nunneries to debate, but actually debate was not as widespread in Tibet as we may think. It's only nowadays that most of the monasteries and nunneries actually practice some form of debate, at least in the Gelug tradition. Some of the other traditions have now taken it on as well. In Cherubling, for instance, the Kagyu monastery near Bir in India, in northern India, they're also debating. They have this strong debate tradition, or strong, well, I don't know how far it goes back, but they're definitely nowadays spending a lot of time debating. But focusing on the Gelug tradition, yeah, nowadays you find a lot of monasteries and nunneries following this kind of tool, or implementing this kind of tool. But before Tibet lost her freedom, only the three main monasteries, so Drebung, Ganden, Sera, they debated. And then I think it was the Kumbum monastery, Labrang in Amdo, and Tashilhumpo in Shigatse. And the other monasteries and nunneries didn't debate.